The morning in Seattle is truly beautiful, with golden sunlight pouring through the lush green canopy, highlighting the serene charm of the small neighborhood. Alex, a talented freelance artist, is sitting on the porch, savoring a fragrant cup of coffee while enjoying the fresh atmosphere. The cheerful chirping of birds blends with the rustling of the wind, creating a gentle natural symphony that brings him relief. Everything seems perfect. Alex's cat, Whiskers, with its sleek gray fur, is curled up beside him, occasionally opening and closing its eyes, as if caught up in the morning's enchantment. Alex loves not only art but also Whiskers, the cat he adopted from a shelter a few years ago. It's this moment, surrounded by the tranquility of nature and the presence of his beloved pet, that inspires his creative endeavors. As Alex immerses himself in his creative thoughts, the peaceful atmosphere of the neighborhood is gradually disrupted by the sound of hurried footsteps. A brightly dressed woman, in a glaring yellow outfit and a large sun hat, is striding briskly toward his house. Her attire seems completely out of place with the gentle morning ambiance, as if she hails from a different world, one that knows nothing of tranquility. The name Karen begins to circulate from every corner of the neighborhood. Everyone knows her. Karen is notorious for her strong personality, always taking it upon herself to criticize what she deems as wrong within the community. Her large ego has led many residents to refer to her as the neighborhood commander. Today, it seems that Karen has decided to seek out Alex to address some issue. When Karen stands at Alex's porch, her eyes gleam with mockery. "Do you know that you are ruining the neighborhood's aesthetic?" The aggressive question rings out, leaving Alex both surprised and enraged at the same time. He looks at Karen, unable to believe that someone could be so derisive and disrespectful, especially when he is merely enjoying a peaceful morning in his small home. "I'm sorry, but I don't think I've done anything wrong," Alex replies cautiously, trying to remain calm. Everyone has the right to express themselves. This is also why he chose to be a freelance artist. He did not want to become part of a dreary machine where people were forced to comply with rules and were not allowed to live authentically. "That's exactly what I'm talking about," Karen retorts without hesitation. "This feeling is not art, it's chaos. This neighborhood needs some adjustments." She crosses her arms, striking a pose as if delivering a lecture. Alex feels a surge of anger at her arrogance. Everything Karen is saying is merely a personal opinion, and her attempt to impose it on others is completely unacceptable. Tensions escalate when Karen threatens to call the authorities to intervene if Alex does not change the decor of his home. Fury wells up within Alex, but instead of losing control, he decides to use humor to navigate this awkward situation. "The weather is so lovely. Maybe you should enjoy it instead of worrying about what others are doing." But no one can understand Karen, and no one can convince her that creativity and beauty can take many different forms. She views everything through the lens of a conservative individual, always wanting things to fit into the framework she deems correct. This truly exhausts Alex. As the morning drifts on, familiar faces of neighbors step out of their homes, many looking toward Karen and Alex, eagerly waiting to see what will happen next. They have clearly heard the argument and feel a bit of excitement over this drama. Alex wonders if he should call for help from friends or stand up by himself to defend his perspective and way of life. Part of him wants to call for solidarity from those around him, but another part fears the consequences that may befall him. No one in the neighborhood wants to become a target for criticism and pointing fingers like Alex is now. Yet, as he looks at Karen's determined gaze, he knows he can no longer stand idly by. The tranquil atmosphere has been shattered, and the flames of conflict have begun to ignite without any sign of being extinguished. Alex thinks to himself, this battle has only just begun. Things cannot return to how they were before, and he can no longer sit quietly. His pride and love for beauty and art compel him to stand up and fight for what he believes in. In this very moment, Alex decides he will no longer remain silent in the face of oppression from a difficult woman like Karen. He knows that here, amidst these changes and challenges, his life will turn a new chapter. It will not be easy, but surely it will be full of interesting experiences. In the early spring days in Seattle, the sunlight flooded the streets, and the atmosphere was pristine. Unfortunately, that peace was shattered by the intrusion of Karen. It didn't matter if they were men or women. Especially those difficult individuals like Karen always found ways to stir trouble and engage in arguments. By nature, Alex relished the tranquility, and this morning was no different from previous days as he savored a warm cup of coffee, enjoying the fresh air on his porch. Suddenly, a powerful, unmistakable voice broke the serenity of the space. Stop. What kind of artist destroys the landscape of this neighborhood? The bitter, confrontational tone struck the air like a blow. Alex furrowed his brow in surprise and looked up. Facing him was Karen, a woman with a striking fashion sense, her nails painted in glaring colors, clad in vibrant clothing, seemingly lacking nothing in her efforts to attract attention. However, the way she instigated conflict made her allure more irritating than enchanting. Curiosity mingled with discomfort in Alex's eyes. I'm sorry, but I'm not trying to cause trouble. I'm just adding a bit of color to the neighborhood, he said, trying to remain calm and not let anger seep into his voice. But Karen was not to be easily placated. She continued her attack, presenting absurd reasons that Alex's paintings were ruining the neighborhood's facade. Look, even a small tree is not safe while you paint these things. It's no longer art. Her shrill voice echoed, as if the artist were ruining the pure air's palette of the neighborhood. Perhaps she was unaware that art has two sides and does not always cater to the standards of a minority. Anger surged within Alex. But instead of retaliating immediately, he decided to observe and analyze the situation. The argument quickly escalated. Alex could see clearly that this was not just a simple woman upset over aesthetic issues. This was a battle of principles. He realized that if he was not careful, this confrontation could significantly impact his spirit and that of the surrounding community. He began to think about how to resolve this situation because confronting someone like Karen could not merely be done with words. Karen, he said, trying to be gentler, everyone has the right to their own opinion. Unfortunately, you might not like my artistic style, but remember that everyone has their own way of expressing themselves. I cannot change for your satisfaction. Alex's positive and calm tone made Karen pause for a moment. She stood there, listening while continuing to challenge him. You can't persuade me with those words. Perhaps you should reflect on yourself before speaking about what is right and wrong. If you don't quickly stop this nonsense, I will have to call the council for intervention. Karen shot back. Her eyes locked on his. Determination etched on her face. Those words were like stones thrown into the pristine atmosphere, sending ripples through Alex's thoughts. Everything suddenly grew tense. A sense of helplessness and sadness flooded his heart, not only from Karen's threats, but also from the division it caused within the community. Alex felt as if the vibrant colors of the neighborhood were gradually lining up as things to be despised. He wondered whether he should continue to endure or begin to stand up for what he believed in. In a moment of reflection, Alex stepped back, contemplating the circumstances around him. The air had grown cold as anxiety surged. He couldn't fight alone. Support from friends would be essential. "Perhaps I need to reach out to my closest friends," he whispered to himself, quickly deciding to pull out his phone. The friends with whom he had shared countless joyous and sorrowful memories were now the ones who could assist him in the looming confrontation. "We need a plan." Alex texted to his close-knit group of friends. "There's a surprising situation in the neighborhood, and I feel I need some support within minutes." Huang, his loyal friend, replied with seriousness and determination. She was not only an artist but also had a solid background in communications. Her presence would help Alex gather opinions from others. As the group of friends gathered, Alex felt a portion of his anxiety dissipate. Together, they sought not only emotional support, but also fought for art and the freedom of self-expression. The lively conversations made Alex feel that justice was on his side, and the battle was not solitary. Indeed, the arrival of his friends was like a renewed wave, igniting a fighting spirit within him. His paintings, along with the creative potential they represented, were his means of combating the negativity in life, and he was determined not to let Karen or anyone else take that away. Life was meant to create works of art, and Alex would not allow anyone to hinder that passion. As a freelance artist, Alex often welcomed bright days not only with brush strokes but also with the freedom that life bestowed. Yet, something intangible began to disturb his peace. The arrival of Karen, a vividly dressed woman, blew a cold wind into the sunny space Alex was enjoying. Her criticisms left him feeling frustrated. It was a battle not only between two individuals but also a clash of differing thoughts and philosophies of living. As Karen stood there with a mocking gaze, Alex felt the gap between them widening. How could someone like him, who lived and created art under radiant sunshine, be disturbed by someone so diametrically opposed like Karen nevertheless? He understood that this confrontation could not stem from crude words or sarcasm. Instead, he aimed to establish a meaningful dialogue, to present a genuine perspective on art and life. "Karen," Alex began, his voice filled with restraint yet bolstered by determination, "you may not fully understand the art I pursue, but I hope you can view it from a different angle. Fine art is not merely an image. Sometimes it reflects the thoughts and emotions we experience. I have never intended to tarnish this neighborhood. On the contrary, I wish to bring color and emotion to those around me." Karen responded with a disdainful smile. She seemed unwilling to listen. Instead of constructive feedback, she commenced listing the myriad things she found unsatisfactory about Alex's work. Her ongoing critiques fell like hailstones from a cold sky, leaving Alex feeling powerless. "Why do you think the threat of preserving a perfect image for this neighborhood holds more value than embracing diversity?" Alex could no longer remain silent. "What I create is not for your or anyone else's agreement. It is emotion, a perspective. And if you don't like it, then that is merely a part of life." But Karen did not relent. She threatened to call the authorities, sketching an unflattering portrait of Alex in front of the neighbors. This act ignited Alex's fervor. Had she forgotten that creativity cannot be confined within the narrow frameworks of societal acceptance? Alex decided that this could not continue. He was worn out from the cutting words of this woman, not only for himself but for all the people living in this neighborhood, who also needed to find joy in art, in everyday life. Alex's next action was not to retaliate against Karen. He messaged his close friends, those who had always stood beside him in adventures and challenges, those who had joined him in exploring the beauty of art and life. He shared the current situation and called for support. In no time, Alex's friends arrived. They came not merely to stand beside him, but also brought with them an undeniable spirit of solidarity. Each one of them possessed unique talents and perspectives. They had the potential to inspire a small revolution in this community. They had witnessed Alex fighting for what he believed in, and now they were ready to join in. "We cannot let Karen control what is happening here," one of Alex's friends said. "We need to explain to the residents that creativity is not a crime. It is an essential part of life." At that moment, Alex felt a spark of hope. The support of his friends created a solid wall, boosting his confidence in fighting for what he believed in. Together, they planned a community gathering where everyone could share their thoughts on art and express how they felt about what Karen had done. Slowly, Alex realized that this struggle was not only to protect art, but also a fight to reclaim dignity and determination. The feeling of not being alone fueled Alex's strength, and he was ready to face whatever challenges Karen would bring forth. He knew that the unity from friends and residents would create the strongest foundation to tackle life's challenges. But would preparing a group of friends and engaging the audience around here be enough to intimidate Karen? Or could this merely be the beginning of a new battle, wherein not only creativity would be respected, but human values would also be upheld? This journey would surely require more than that, and Alex was ready to venture forth. Karen, refusing to back down in the face of Alex's opposition and his close friends, began to devise a plan to tarnish his reputation within the community. She decided to organize a meeting of the Homeowners Association HOA to defame Alex, turning the gathering into a public trial for her negative opinions. With the qualities of a strong-willed woman, Karen was unhesitant to employ necessary tactics to achieve her goals. Karen started spreading misinformation about Alex, rallying other residents from the neighborhood to join her cause. "He is harming the values of our neighborhood," she repeatedly proclaimed. "We cannot allow someone like this to influence us." Her words became a sharp weapon, stirring up latent fears among her neighbors. They began to feel uneasy about the freedoms that Alex might obstruct, even though this was far from the truth. Despite facing Karen's piercing remarks, Alex remained undaunted. He knew that the truth would ultimately come to light. To prepare for the HOA meeting, he gathered his close friends to establish a reliable response plan. They decided to collect all possible evidence to prove that what Karen said were merely lies. They discussed compiling an official report on Alex's activities in the neighborhood, from the artistic paintings he created to the community gatherings he organized. Alex's friends, each possessing unique skills, quickly set to work. Jess, a freelance journalist, decided to document everything that occurred during the HOA meeting by interviewing other residents. Meanwhile, Mike, a seasoned lawyer, assisted Alex in compiling all necessary legal documents, preparing for any situation that may arise. Together, they formed an inseparable support team. While gathering information, Alex also carefully contemplated how to express his viewpoint. He aimed not only to defend himself, but also to give Karen an opportunity to understand that her criticisms were not a means to build a better community. "I don't want to fight with her," Alex told his friends. "I want to show her that creativity can bring strength, not weakness." The HOA meeting was officially scheduled. Every resident in the neighborhood was notified and anticipated a heated debate between Alex and Karen. On that day, the atmosphere grew tense. Alex felt the eyes of his neighbors monitoring every move he and Karen made, as if it was a competition of right versus wrong. As he entered the meeting room, Alex sensed a wave of anxiety. However, he was not prepared for how his friends had managed to improve the situation. They had prepared and created a warm atmosphere with words of encouragement and support. Despite the pressure from Karen, Alex knew he was not alone. Karen arrived with a determined expression, her face radiating a powerful demeanor, as though she was prepared for battle. "I cannot stand by and let someone like this live in our neighborhood," she declared, capturing the attention of the surrounding residents. Her words caused some to nod in agreement, while others showed clear signs of doubt. At the opportune moment, Alex stood up and began to express his voice. "I understand that I may not be the perfect model in the eyes of some," he started. "But what I do is simply to express myself, bringing art to the community." He looked towards Karen, not with animosity but with understanding. "We all have the right to live in the spaces we love." The debate unfolded with tension but was fair, as Alex presented evidence that his creativity had contributed to making the neighborhood more vibrant and lively. Support began to swell. Residents began to stand up and share their own feelings about art and creativity. "I never thought a painting could change my mood," one resident remarked. "Alex's artwork has helped me see this neighborhood in a different light." Even as Alex's persuasive words started positively impacting the community, Karen did not relent. She persisted in stoking opposition, continuing with her harsh and provocative rhetoric. However, the outcome of the meeting was no longer in Karen's control, thanks to the unity of the residents. The truth about her extreme actions began to surface as many stood up and shared their discomfort with her behavior in the past. Ultimately, it was Karen who began to feel the pressure from the community. Her expression shifted. Losing the confidence she had initially shown, gradually, from her role as a critic, she morphed into one who had to take responsibility. Confronting her own mistakes, the image of a strong woman began to waver. The situation grew increasingly critical for Karen as those around her no longer yielded. They stood up not only to protect Alex but also to seek a better community. This demonstrated that in this struggle, it was not only Alex but the collective deserving of having their voices heard. Sometimes, the truth requires a price through unimaginable battles. Yet, in the end, those who stand firm on the path of righteousness will always emerge as the true victors. Alex felt the tension in the air as news of the conflict with Karen spread throughout the neighborhood. However, he did not want to succumb to negativity. Reflecting on the close friends who had accompanied him through countless adventures, Alex resolutely decided to call them together to restore spirit and joy for himself and the community. That afternoon, after messaging in their group chat, Alex sat waiting on the porch, alongside Whiskers, watching the sky transform through patches of pink clouds. Before long, his close friends appeared, true to their style, always humorous and full of energy. Mia arrived with her wide-brimmed hat. Matt brought along a mini drum set, and Lily carried a basket filled with snacks. Let's see. A battle with Karen wouldn't be complete without music. Mia cheerfully exclaimed as she took off her hat and looked around the garden for creative ideas. Matt began to play a soft beat on the drums, creating a friendly and laid-back atmosphere. "Hey, Alex." Lily started with an encouraging smile. "We need to do something not just to protect you, but also to reflect the strength of our community. We won't let Karen darken this neighborhood any further." One by one, they began discussing. Ideas sprang to life in their minds like clouds in the Seattle sky, with no barriers to their lively conversation. The creativity behind each plan reignited Alex's excitement. The group decided to organize a community gathering, featuring fun activities, stories, and clear messages about unity, compassion, and harmony. "We're not just talking about protecting Alex," Matt emphasized. "We need to show the entire community the positive energy and strength of togetherness." After hours of brainstorming, Alex's friends had crafted an extravagant event. They named it Community Unity Day. The event was set to take place over the weekend, aiming to attract participation from all residents in the neighborhood. They prepared announcement boards, distributed flyers at the houses, and posted information on social media. On the day of the event, as the sun began to rise, Alex sensed a different atmosphere in the neighborhood. Chairs had been set up outside, small bands were rehearsing, and laughter echoed everywhere. Residents from all around came to join, not only to support Alex but also to revel in the joy of togetherness. When everything was ready, Alex stood on the small stage with a microphone in hand, his heart pounding. He scanned the audience and saw familiar faces, which provided him some comfort. Alex began to speak. "Hello everyone today. We are here not just for one person, but for all of us. We are a community, and when one person is in trouble, we must stand by each other to support. Together, we can create a positive environment where everyone can shine." As the applause rang out, Alex felt empowered. He continued, "My story with Karen is not just a personal conflict. It reflects what we can do to maintain our spirit of unity. Remember, this community is not only where we live, but it is where we love and support each other." Right after Alex finished speaking, his friends quickly initiated fun activities from traditional games to artistic performances. Both adults and children immersed themselves in the exciting atmosphere. Laughter and interaction swept away the barriers that had once existed during the event. What Alex had not anticipated was the unexpected response from the residents. They began sharing stories about Karen's past unkind actions, but not with anger or hatred. Instead, they spoke with empathy and understanding. The stories expressed disappointment, yet also a desire to help one another. Karen is not a bad person. One resident stood up to say, "We need to help her realize that unity is the true strength." Those words resonated like a harmonious melody in the air, warming the atmosphere. Others began nodding in agreement, proving that they had forged a deeper connection despite their differences. At the end of the day, as the sun set, the atmosphere was filled with hope. Alex felt his heart flutter, not only from the support of the residents, but also from the way they perceived and thought about Karen. If a conflict could foster greater unity, perhaps that was indeed the way to overcome life's challenges. The Community Unity Day was a resounding success. Alex held newfound faith that the strength of the people could triumph over all negativity. And in his heart, he hoped that Karen would too, feel a flicker of light within and find a way to better integrate with the community. In the warm afternoon setting, sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating a pleasant and bright atmosphere in the neighborhood. Alex stood by the window, gazing outside and feeling the connection that was gradually forming among his neighbors. The community was no longer hesitant when facing Karen. After Alex's group of friends organized a community gathering, the atmosphere changed completely. Hearing the heartfelt shares from other residents filled Alex with hope. They had come together to reassess the issue, and no one felt alone anymore. The community that Alex had lived in for many years was not just a place for him to make a living. It was a home where people cherished and protected one another. Neighbors, who might have previously been hesitant before Karen's unpleasantness, were now standing up together to address the problem. With a proud and determined expression, Karen began to realize that her power was gradually being undermined. No one was trembling before her criticisms anymore. The community had found common ground, and this created an unimaginable strength. Those who had once been victims of Karen's actions decided not to remain silent. They shared their stories, from being criticized for their personal preferences to being constantly imposed upon by her way of life. This unsettled Karen. She had never imagined that one day she would be the subject of criticism and questioning. People had come together to create an atmosphere of unity, strength, and resolve, challenging the influence that they had once feared. Fear had slowly transformed into courage. They began organizing regular meetings, creating a space for everyone to share their thoughts and feelings. The sincere sharing truly created a positive channel of communication, helping them understand each other better. At the same time, Karen realized that the solid wall she had built around herself was slowly being chipped away. The looks of admiration were gone, replaced by suspicious glances. She felt abandoned as her old friends gradually distanced themselves, no longer wanting to participate in her dictatorial ideas. Instead, they chose to stand by Alex, who had helped them realize the value of solidarity. Each week, the residents organized gatherings, from small festivals to community activities, where people could socialize and connect, from barbecues to charitable endeavors. The significant participation fostered a joyful and friendly atmosphere. In these meetings, Alex was always present, becoming a vital element in creating a warm and open environment. He proudly showcased his art pieces, which were not just products of creativity but also carried his feelings and dedication towards the neighborhood. On the contrary, Karen recognized that the cacophony she had once created no longer had an effect. The attention she sought to attract now only elicited scornful and wary looks from the other residents. In an attempt to regain control, Karen tried to organize private meetings with some residents. However, her cunning maneuvers were evident. These individuals no longer wished to hear complaints from someone they had previously found insufferable. Yet, alongside the joy, the growing solidarity also brought about relentless challenges. A series of community activities began to turn into regular events. With each appearance of Karen at these events, the atmosphere became somewhat tense. Questioning glances and unspoken inquiries formed a barrier between her and the others. Karen realized that the wrongdoings of her past loomed over her like a haunting specter, making her restless. Although Karen tried to present another side of herself during the meetings, her superficial interactions could not deceive anyone. Her efforts gradually faltered into silence and indifference. More than ever, her role in the community became increasingly unclear. Alex and his friends, observing Karen's situation, no longer felt resentment. They understood that change does not come easily, and sometimes one needs an outsider's perspective to recognize one's own faults. Despite their distaste for Karen's behavior, they decided to give her a chance. They believed that solidarity and compassion could create significant miracles and help the community move towards a brighter future. The community gatherings were not only a place for relaxation and connection, but also an opportunity to open new pathways. Alex and his friends discussed and decided that one day they would invite Karen to participate in their activities, as a way to extend an olive branch and help her reintegrate. Although many challenges remained, their determination to change Karen's perspective and behavior had begun to take root. The community was no longer fearful but had become a place of mutual support, ready to welcome anyone, including Karen. With open arms, the official HOA meeting took place in an atmosphere of tension and anticipation. Alex sat in the front row, feeling as if his heart was pounding harder than ever. He knew that this was not just an ordinary meeting. It was a decisive battle, not only for him but also for the beloved neighborhood he called home. Next to him was his close-knit group of friends, who had stood by him throughout this stormy season. They exchanged supportive glances, reassuring Alex. The seats in the hall were packed, and local residents were eager to know the developments of the conflict and to support those who advocated for the truth. Karen had chosen a seat in the center, as if she were claiming the space. She always exuded confidence with her vibrant appearance and accompanying energy, but today there was something amiss. Her eyes, usually bright, now seemed dull, betraying a sense of worry and tension. From the very first moments of the meeting, Karen began to disrupt proceedings, repeatedly interjecting and trying to manipulate the situation. Nevertheless, Alex refused to let her provocations distract him. When the chair, a middle-aged man with a stern demeanor, opened the meeting, Alex was prepared for his speech. He stood up, slowed his breathing, and silently prayed for calm. "Hello, residents and council leaders," he began, his voice steady and full of confidence. "Today, we gather not only to face some personal criticisms but also to defend the values and spirit of the community we have built." Alex continued, "I am not perfect, of course, but like many of you, I love this neighborhood. That is why I feel compelled to stand up for what is right when I see Karen's actions violate this spirit of unity." A gentle wave of support rippled through the residents. Alex saw some nodding in agreement, and his heart warmed. He emphasized the importance of every individual's right to express themselves and to add their own color to the community. But this should never come at the expense of hurting others. "Karen." Alex turned to face her. "I have always appreciated your efforts in promoting the beauty of this neighborhood. However, when you choose to criticize others and threaten those who disagree with you, I fear you have undermined those very values. We may differ, but our differences should not be a reason to fight against one another." Karen wildly nodded, unable to conceal her confusion. Many residents began to stand up, each sharing their individual stories, from feeling pressured to conform to her unrealistic standards to being disregarded and threatened by her. "The truth is," an elderly woman said, "we all have the right to live and express ourselves without fear of criticism. I have witnessed what Karen has done, and I cannot stand idly by while others live in fear of her." A round of applause erupted from the audience, and the atmosphere of the meeting became more vibrant than ever. Everyone stood up to show solidarity. A young man spoke up, "We need to find ways to support each other instead of applying pressure. We are a community, and our bonds are what truly matter." Karen, with a steely glare, still attempted to disrupt this spirited atmosphere. "That's not true. I just want everyone to pay attention to what's happening around us. I don't want any degradation in the neighborhood where I live," she yelled. But her voice now sounded weaker than before, more cornered than ever. Alex gradually understood that it was essential to listen to the feedback from the community at this crucial moment. "Karen, instead of criticizing, why not learn from these opinions? We can all come together. I believe that support and love will be stronger than any criticism as we walk the path of building a stronger neighborhood." Loud applause continued, overwhelming Karen's voice. The unbearable pressure had nearly drained her strength, and her confidence began to crack. Alex felt the power of truth and solidarity all around him. The truth was being unveiled, and Karen was gradually facing the consequences of her actions. The meeting marked an irreversible turning point. Alex felt clearly that with unity and courage, they could overcome any obstacles posed by malicious intent. Some in the community began to rise, not only to defend Alex, but also to stand up for one another, collectively working to create an environment where everyone was loved and respected. Ultimately, that strong wave of support helped transform a tense meeting into an opportunity to affirm the strength of solidarity. Karen stood there, dragging her feet across the dark streak of loneliness she had created. And in that moment, everyone witnessed the restoration of the community. The sentiments of the residents had shifted, and the light of connection was shining brighter than ever. In the HOA meeting, the atmosphere grew tense as each person voiced their opinions about Alex and the controversies surrounding Karen. All eyes were turned towards the two of them, as if they were standing on a grand stage where everyone's hidden thoughts were laid bare. Karen, who was typically confident and often asserted herself, now appeared flustered as the other residents gradually shared their own stories about her petty and rude behavior. When Alex stepped up to the podium, He felt the intense pressure building within him, but more than anyone else, he knew that this was the moment for the truth to be revealed, not only for himself but for everyone in this community. With a steady voice, Alex began, "I stand here not just for myself, but for all of us. We have lived in fear for too long because of thoughtless actions and inappropriate words. It is truly unfortunate that someone among us has behaved in such a manner." Whispers echoed through the room, some people nodding in agreement. Alex sensed the support from friends and many other residents, which further strengthened him. "I'm not here to tarnish anyone's reputation. I just want everyone to understand that each of us has a responsibility to protect the peaceful atmosphere of this neighborhood. Everyone has the right to speak up, and none of us should have to accept negativity from any individual." Alex's words flowed like a wave from the bottom of his heart, gradually becoming stronger. "Dear Mrs. Karen, it is clear that you have your own thoughts regarding how I live and work in this neighborhood. But remember, you cannot impose your views onto the lives of others. It is our differences that enrich and diversify this community." As Karen stood nearby, she could feel the loss of the power she once had. All eyes were on her, seemingly waiting for her justification. But what Karen did not expect was that the rebellion within the community had long grown weary of her behavior. A resident named Tom, the neighbor living right next to Karen, stood up and shared, "I have witnessed many occasions where Mrs. Karen criticized trivial matters around us, from the flowers in front of my house to how I mow my lawn. This behavior not only is rude, but even affects my mental well-being and that of other families. We deserve to have a positive living environment, not one filled with fear." Tom's commendable action encouraged many other residents to speak out. A middle-aged woman, Anne, also stated, "I have lived here for over 15 years, and I can say that Karen has always been the one to set boundaries that none of us want to jump over. Let us live honestly with ourselves without worrying about whether you will judge or criticize." Each story flowed gradually like a current, sweeping away years of pent-up grievances. Alex's friends and residents bravely exposed the difficulties in their relationships with Karen. What Karen could not foresee was that each story only dug her deeper into the quagmire of harsh truths. Under the pressure from the community, Karen stepped back, her eyes filled with confusion. People noticed she was no longer the strong person she once was. She began seeking protection from those around her, pulling up old stories to justify her actions, but all she received in return were cold, indifferent glances from those who once were her friends. A mix of emotions arose in Alex's heart, a blend of compassion and indignation. He wondered if Karen's image had been completely shattered. Was there any way left for her to make amends? But above all, the most important thing was for the community to stand firm and overcome the barriers that fear had erected. As the atmosphere began to calm, Alex realized that only through truth and the solidarity of everyone, both in actions and principles, could the community find true peace. He smiled upon witnessing the glimmer of hope in the residents' eyes. Together, they were strong and determined as a collective to stand against the shadow of negativity. And that was the true power of solidarity. The meeting was not just a battle of individuals, but a symbol of the strength of the community itself. Alex was no longer merely an artist. At this moment, he had become a representative of the values of peace and mutual respect within his neighborhood. Regardless of the outcome, the image of a strong and united community had fostered hope, and that hope would never be defeated. Under the increasing pressure from the community, Karen felt as if everything around her was collapsing. The scene at that day's HOA meeting transformed into an intense portrait, with all eyes fixed on her, causing the confidence she had once held proudly to now become merely a shadow. The growing pressure not only compelled her to confront Alex, but also those she once thought would stand by her side. Anxiety and insecurity crept into her heart, leaving her feeling far less self-assured than before, like a turbulent river. The truth about Karen's actions was laid bare. Residents stood one by one, sharing their personal experiences with her. Stories that few had dared to voice openly before. One woman recalled the time Karen stirred up a ruckus in the neighborhood over a bit of cheerful music at her son's birthday party. An elderly man recounted how Karen had called the police solely due to the perceived unprofessionalism of a nearby construction company, which was, in fact, entirely legal. The people's gaze shifted from admiration to mockery. They regarded Karen's actions with eyes brimming with disappointment and sarcasm. The commotion she had once tried to create dissipated in an instant, giving way to empathy for Alex, someone they now understood better than ever. Karen began to feel the weight of the community's disdain around her. The light from the candles lit by Alex's friends, a symbol of peaceful unity, became a punishment for her excessive actions. Karen, with a swaying demeanor and eyes glistening with unease, struggled to stutter a few words in defense, but found herself ineffective. Each statement faltered, failing to resonate with the consensus she once commanded. Residents were no longer fearful. They stood united, forming a sturdy wall against the chaos Karen was attempting to instigate. No one sought her opinion anymore. No one held fear of her any longer. The days of her sitting atop a throne of power and fear were over. Now she was merely a woman standing center stage. Stripped of the audience she once believed would always support her, the situation grew even more severe as no one sought refuge in Karen's words any longer. They no longer accepted the unreasonable criticisms from a woman whose finicky nature had tarnished so much of what was good around them. Karen could no longer remain silent. She felt her inner voice like a storm. Emotions, long repressed, now began to surge forth. "Don't anyone dare stand up like cowards? You have no right to silence my opinion," she shouted into the crowd, her voice turning hoarse. Her words seemed like fireflies flickering in a ravaged night, failing to illuminate. Alex, standing tall, more confident than ever, was ready to confront the entire neighborhood. "The truth cannot be reversed," he said, his convincing gaze locked onto Karen's eyes. "We live here out of love for every inch of this land, for every person here. None of us wish for our neighborhood to become a frightening place just because one woman cannot accept differences." Alex's articulate and powerful words resonated like the echo of a peace anthem. Stirring the hearts of the residents, they began to clap, shedding fear in favor of hope and support. These humanitarian emotions, alongside their unity, became the formidable strength of the entire community. Karen stood there. Something within her began to tremble. She wondered if things could change, if she could rein in her impulses and accept the reality that she could not control everything. A faint light flickered in her mind, but it was too weak compared to the storm of emotions raging inside. As the meeting concluded, she sought every possible way to escape the blinding light of truth. For the first time, she felt lonely, even eccentric, among those she once believed would always be by her side. Karen realized that in the hearts of those residents, they no longer believed in the image she had strived to cultivate. She was trapped in the web of her own making, no longer any place to hide. In the quiet space after the meeting, Karen envisioned her future. Could she change herself, or would she forever remain in the shadows of her poor decisions? That was the question she now had to face. With each word spoken by Alex, a rigid part of her began to melt, giving way to the hope of a better version of herself. And at this moment, Karen, a woman who once thought she could control everything, began to realize the necessity of acknowledging her mistakes, and step by step, seek reconciliation not only with Alex but with the entire community. A new battleground was opening up, where the truth could become an opportunity for genuine change. After enduring the protracted days of conflict with Karen, Alex sat in his office, burdened by a deep sense of concern. A sense of justice had been established in the neighborhood, yet it left a void within him and in the community. The clashes with Karen, characterized by divergent lifestyles and mindsets, had created a rift. And now, Alex yearned not only for victory, but also for reconciliation. On a cool afternoon, Karen knocked on Alex's door. Her unexpected appearance caught Alex off guard. He suspected it was merely a new game of hers. Yet deep down, he sensed something was different. Karen's gaze no longer reflected arrogance, but bore traces of remorse and anxiety. She did not step inside. She stood outside, cautious like a child scolded. "Alex, I want to talk." Karen spoke in a gentle tone, devoid of the usual sharpness. "I know I was wrong. I have failed by not being able to see life from another perspective, and I am truly sorry." Hearing these words, Alex felt an undeniable surprise. He had not expected Karen, a strong and assertive woman, to admit her faults this way. After a moment's hesitation, he invited her in, but could not mask the tension within himself. "We have been through so much," Alex began. "But why are you coming now to apologize? Did you not consider other people's feelings before?" "Please, give me a moment to explain," Karen said as she took a seat. "I have lived with prejudices and my own pride. I thought I knew everything. But after everything that has happened, I realize that I have hurt not just myself, but the whole community." As the air filled with unhappy memories, Alex felt it wasn't easy to hear these words from someone he had once viewed as an enemy. But despite his lingering doubts, a part of him began to open up. "Do you think this community can forgive you?" he asked, pointing out the complexity of the situation. Karen nodded. "I know it won't be easy, but I am ready to change. I will do anything to regain people's trust. I want to be a positive part of the community. Please give me a chance." Alex was unsure how to respond. Part of him wanted to remain skeptical, but another part was drawn to the sincerity in Karen's words. He decided to give her a challenging opportunity. "If you truly want that, let's start with participating in community activities. Show everyone that they can trust you." Karen accepted Alex's advice as a glimmer of hope on a long journey. She promised to attend meetings, engage in volunteer activities, and be open to other people's opinions. "I no longer want to be someone who only criticizes. I want to be a part of the solution." As time passed, Karen began showing up at every community event, despite the skeptical glances from neighbors. She gradually proved that she had changed. She joined cleanup activities, organized fundraising events, and even took painting classes from Alex to better understand the art that he was passionate about. Seeing Karen's efforts, Alex felt lighter in spirit. The paintings they created together were not just works of art. They provided opportunities for communication and mutual understanding. The patience and collaborative spirit between Alex and Karen helped unite the community more than ever. Every time Karen shared her story with the community, people began to overlook the past and look forward to a brighter future. The lessons of forgiveness, empathy, and the ability to change oneself were slowly becoming ingrained in everyone's hearts. Ultimately, Karen's transformation became an inspiration for the entire neighborhood. They not only recognized that everyone had the capacity to make mistakes, but also understood that facing one's own errors and seeking to amend them was what truly mattered. In the end, The community welcomed Karen back warmly, not just for what she had done, but for who she had become. As things settled down, Alex saw everything that had transpired as a valuable lesson. Their story was not merely a battle between good and evil, but a long journey toward building trust and forgiveness within each individual. From what seemed impossible, they learned to turn pain into strength and conflicts into opportunities for growth and brilliance. Life in the Seattle neighborhood was no longer just a collection of still images, but a vibrant work of art, where everyone painted a more beautiful picture together. After months filled with stress and exhaustion, change has come to Alex's small neighborhood. Karen, the woman who had caused no small amount of trouble and discomfort for those around her, has now found a new path for herself. No one could have expected that the confrontations of the previous days would become the catalyst for her exploration of the different shades of life, starting from small efforts. Karen took the initiative to engage in community activities. She regularly attended gatherings, discussing safety and improvement issues with other residents. One reason the people living nearby began to be impressed by and gradually accept Karen was her sincere desire to make the neighborhood a better place. Karen organized neighborhood cleanups, planted trees, and even created a small flower garden in front of her house to beautify the area for everyone. With each activity, Karen gradually rebuilt her image. One day, while she was planting trees with Alex and others, she laughed and shared humorous stories about her past failures in caring for plants. The atmosphere became more intimate, and the tension between her and Alex gradually dissipated. Alex noticed the genuine enthusiasm in Karen's eyes no longer filled with anger or judgment, but instead reflecting admiration and an effort to do something good. During a community meeting, Alex stood up and shared his feelings. He emphasized the importance of empathy and the ability to change. "We can all make mistakes," he said, "but what matters more is how we confront them. I used to dislike Karen, but now I see that if we don't give each other a chance to make amends, how can we grow together?" Other residents, who had previously criticized Karen, also loosened their doubts and expressed support for her. They began to see Karen not just as a difficult woman, but as a person struggling to improve herself and rebuild her relationship with the community. No one is perfect, but I believe we all have the capacity to change. An older resident spoke up, holding a small trophy that Karen had made from recycled materials. Through her actions and sincerity, Karen has opened up a path to recovery for herself and for the whole neighborhood. Her efforts have convinced many, and more people started to refer to her as Sister Karen, a term that reflected a warmth and familiarity absent before. Karen has not only changed, but has also become an inspiration for many around her. Her story, from a difficult woman to a part of a cohesive community, has created an inspiring narrative for those who've ever felt alone or inadequate. She has shown that change is possible, and, more importantly, that everyone has the right to seek forgiveness not only from others but also from themselves. As time went by, the relationship between Alex and Karen blossomed. They became not just colleagues in beautifying the neighborhood but also friends. They shared coffee every morning, gazing at what they had built and developed alongside each other. Joyful stories and beautiful memories bonded them, helping them to understand each other better and realize that sometimes differences are necessary to enrich life. Karen's transformation is not just a lesson for her, but also a valuable lesson for the entire community about tolerance and acceptance. It demonstrates that the way we confront differences and treat each other shapes the identity of a community. Once again, the small neighborhood in Seattle became not just a place for people to live, but a sanctuary of friendship, support, and sharing. The story between Alex and Karen concludes not with a perfect ending, but with a stable state, a new beginning of peace and acceptance, the lessons of solidarity, courage, and the capacity to change will forever be remembered as an integral part of each individual's and collective's journey toward maturity. Indeed, the best things often emerge from what seems impossible. Someone once said, "Look towards the light, where everything can be better." And that is what the neighborhood has done and will always do. The story of Alex and Karen, despite beginning with conflict and tension, has led to profound lessons that we can draw from in our daily lives, in a place where the nuances of human personality are laid bare. The journey of the two main characters demonstrates that the twists and turns of life, no matter how daunting, can still be overcome through unity and compassion. When Alex confronts Karen, he's not only fighting for himself but also for the values he believes in. From a peaceful, free-spirited artist, Alex learns that the strength can be found in connection with others. Each member of his community gradually becomes an indispensable part of this struggle. Together, they create a solid front against negativity and inappropriate behaviors. This is the strength of community that Alex had not recognized before. What stands out in the story is Karen's transformation, a difficult woman, controlling and often making life hard for others, comes to realize that her behaviors not only hurt Alex but also impacted the entire community. Indeed, Karen acted from a place of fear and a sense of scarcity. But all of this began to unfold as she faced the truth and the power of solidarity. This results in a revival within Karen's soul. She officially turns her past failures and wounds into motivation for change. The story also conveys a message about forgiveness. We often find it easy to criticize others without understanding what they have been through. Karen was once like this as well. However, what sets us apart as individuals is the ability to self-reflect and strive for change. When Alex and his friends decide to give Karen a chance, they offer her a path for redemption. Compassion not only grants others the opportunity to start anew, but also purifies the souls of those who choose to forgive. The community where Alex lives has become more tightly knit than ever, from social gatherings to sharing stories. The way they face challenges together has forged a tremendous spirit of resilience. No longer are there walls dividing them. Each person has learned to support and protect one another. Together, they have built a peaceful living environment where joy and solidarity are shared. The ability to change is one of the most powerful themes in this story. From living with a negative attitude, Karen gradually recovers, becoming not only a positive part of the community, but also realizing the true value of friendship and empathy. She has learned that change is not always easy, but with enough determination and support from those around her, everything can shift in a positive direction. Ultimately, this story emphasizes that everyone has the capacity to change and learn. No one is perfect, and everyone can make mistakes. What matters is our willingness to acknowledge when we are wrong and to learn from those mistakes. As Alex stated during a community gathering, we don't have to be perfect. We just need to live true to ourselves and make the world around us a better place. Through each page of this story, we witness the journey from conflict to peace, from division to unity. And it's not just Alex and Karen. Each person in the community can find a reflection of themselves, someone who can change, someone who can learn, and someone who can make this life better. In the end, the story concludes with a bright picture. Alex, Karen, and the residents of the small neighborhood have all become part of a large family, one where everyone works together to build a better life. Grievances and conflicts have given way to laughter, celebrations, and cherished memories. Through this, we realize that, although life may be challenging and filled with trials, with love, compassion, and unity, all obstacles can be overcome.